What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button. Let me know how you're doing, and happy freedom. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait a couple minutes. I'm going to share out these links and give everyone notifications. Hopefully you'll do the same. We'll get everybody in the chat, and then we'll get started. We're going to cover the Attorney General national security nonsense they did earlier today, and then we're going to do the press briefing with Karine and see how all that went. So just give me a second here to share these links. Take this time to do the same. Help get the chat all filled up. Hopefully have a cold beverage or two all ready to go. We'll be starting in just a moment. All right. Now that we got some people in the chat, got the link shared out, let's get started. First things first. Cheers, hooligans.
Prostitute.
Good afternoon. I'm joined today by Deputy Attorney General Monaco, FBI Director Wray, and Assistant Attorney General Olson. Also here are Assistant United States Attorneys from the Eastern District of New York and the District of New Jersey. Over the past week, the Justice Department has taken several actions to disrupt criminal activity by individuals working on behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China. As always, the defendants in these cases are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Earlier today, in the Eastern District of New York, a complaint was unsealed charging two PRC intelligence officers with attempting to obstruct, influence, and impede a criminal prosecution of a PRC-based telecommunications company. The complaint alleges that in 2019, the defendants directed an employee at a U.S. government law enforcement agency to steal confidential information about the United States criminal prosecution of the company. The defendants believed that they had recruited the U.S. employee as an asset, but in fact, the individual they recruited was actually a double agent working on behalf of the FBI. As the complaint alleges, the defendants paid a bribe to the double agent to obtain non-public information, including files from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District. They did so in the hope of obtaining the prosecution strategy memo, confidential information regarding witnesses, trial evidence, and potential new charges to be brought against the company. The double agent provided the defendants with documents that appeared to present some of the information they sought. In fact, The documents were prepared by the U.S. government for the purpose of this investigation and did not reveal actual meetings, communications, or strategies. This was an egregious attempt by PRC intelligence officers to shield a PRC-based company from accountability and to undermine the integrity of our judicial system. Also earlier today, in the District of New Jersey, an indictment was unsealed charging 4 individuals, including 3 PRC intelligence officers, with conspiring to act in the United States as illegal agents on behalf of a foreign government. The indictment alleges that between 2008 and 2018, the defendants used the cover of a purported Chinese academic institute to target, co-opt, and direct individuals in the United States to further the PRC's intelligence mission. Those directives included attempts to procure technology and equipment from the United States and to have it shipped to China. They also included attempts to stop protected First Amendment activities, protests here in the United States, which would have been embarrassing to the Chinese government. Separately, in the Eastern District of New York, the Justice Department charged 7 individuals who were working on behalf of the PRC with engaging in a multi-year campaign of threats and harassment to force a U.S. resident to return to China. Last Thursday, we arrested 2 of those defendants. Those activities were part of the PRC's global extra-legal effort known as Operation Fox Hunt. Its purpose is to locate and bring back to China alleged fugitives who have fled to foreign countries, including the United States. The PRC has a history of targeting political dissidents and critics of the government who have sought relief and refuge in other countries. The indictment alleges that the defendants, working at the direction of the government of the PRC, engaged in a campaign of harassment, threats, surveillance, and intimidation aimed at coercing the victim to return to China. We also allege that the defendants threatened and harassed the victim's family members, both in the U.S. and in China. The PRC government forced the victim's nephew to travel from China to the United States to convey the PRC's threats to the victim's son. The defendants threatened the victim, saying that, quote, coming back and turning herself in is the only way out. They showed up at the home of the victim's son in New York. They filed frivolous lawsuits against the victim and his son and said it would be, quote, endless misery for the defendant and son to defend themselves. And they made clear that their harassment would not stop until the victim returned to China. As these cases demonstrate, the government of China sought to interfere with the rights and freedoms of individuals in the United States and to undermine our judicial system that protects those rights. They did not succeed. The Justice Department will not tolerate attempts by any foreign power to undermine the rule of law upon which our democracy is based. We will continue to fiercely protect the rights guaranteed to everyone in our country, and we will defend the integrity of our institutions. Before I turn the podium over to Deputy Attorney General Monaco, I want to recognize the FBI, the National Security Division, and the U.S. Attorney's offices for their extraordinary work on these cases. Now, Deputy Attorney General Monaco.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Attorney General. The Department of Justice will not tolerate threats from a foreign power to the rights of Americans or to our nation's institutions. As the Attorney General has laid out, the cases unsealed today take place against a backdrop of malign activity from the People's Republic of China that includes espionage, harassment, obstruction of our justice system, and unceasing efforts to steal sensitive U.S. technology. In the words of our intelligence community, China seeks to be a major power on the world stage and to challenge the United States in multiple arenas. Today's cases make clear that Chinese agents will not hesitate to break the law and to violate international norms in the process. Two of those cases, in particular, show the lengths they are willing to go in pursuit of unfair advantage. But the defendants charged today met their match in the agents, analysts, and prosecutors of the Department of Justice. According to one indictment unsealed today, 2 intelligence officers attempted, through bribery and espionage, to obstruct the federal criminal prosecution of a global telecommunications company headquartered in the PRC. The defendants attempted to bribe someone they believed was an insider to steal the prosecutor's playbook, including who the prosecutors were meeting with and what they would argue in court, all so that the company could unlawfully gain an edge and undermine the government's case. But the insider flipped the script on the defendants by working not for them, but for Team America. The defendants' desperate efforts to sabotage this prosecution expose the PRC's government's commitment to tilting the playing field in favor of Chinese corporations abroad. Far from accepting the rule of law, PRC agents sought to use bribes to help the Chinese company obstruct and evade it. This case exposes the interconnection between PRC intelligence officers and Chinese companies, and it demonstrates once again why such companies, especially in the telecommunications industry, shouldn't be trusted to securely handle our sensitive personal data and communications. In another matter announced today, individuals associated with the Chinese government allegedly continued its relentless campaign to gain access to our technology, recruit agents, and attempt to stifle the free exchange of ideas. According to the indictment, over a 10-year period, the defendants and others used a fake think tank to try to recruit a former federal law enforcement and state homeland security official and others through a variety of means, including with all expense-paid trips to China. In each case, though, the plots failed because the men and women of the Department of Justice defended our institutions and thwarted the persistent threat posed by agents of the PRC. I want to thank the agents, analysts, and prosecutors in all 3 of these cases for their tireless work on behalf of the American people. And now I'll turn the podium over to FBI Director Wray.
Well, thank you. First, let me begin by pointing out that 10 of the 13 charged individuals we're discussing today are Chinese intelligence officers and Chinese government officials. They're charged in 3 different cases that might seem at first glance to be about unrelated issues. However, and this is something that I've been talking about for years now, each of these cases lays bare the Chinese government's flagrant violation of international laws as they work to project their authoritarian view around the world, including within our own borders. In all 3 of these cases, and frankly in thousands of others, we've found the Chinese government threatening established democratic norms and the rule of law as they work to undermine U.S. economic security and fundamental human rights, including those of Americans. We also see a coordinated effort across the Chinese government to lie, cheat, and steal their way into unfairly dominating entire technology sectors, putting competing U.S. companies out of business. As I've pointed out before, their economic assault and their rights violations are part of the same problem. They both flout the rule of law. And one of the purposes of the Chinese government's repression is to make it easier to steal our innovation. They try to silence anyone who fights back against their theft, companies, politicians, individuals, just as they try to silence anyone who fights back against their other aggressions. And in our cases today, we've got yet another example, their attempted obstruction of an independent judicial process to give underhanded help to one of their companies accused of breaking our intellectual property laws and deny justice to that company's victims. Since I started as FBI director, I've been repeatedly sounding the alarm about the Chinese government's disregard for fair business practices, for international norms, and for the rule of law. The FBI has been reaching out and warning, and more importantly, helping the communities the Chinese government targets. Businesses of every size and in almost every sector, from agriculture to green tech to semiconductors, the Chinese American community, academia and state and local governments, and our foreign partners around the world. Today, every one of those partners is awake and alert to that threat in a way that just wasn't always true 5 years ago. And our success bringing more and more partners to this fight highlights something else important. Beijing may think our adherence to the rule of law is a weakness, but they're wrong. We're disrupting Chinese government criminality and aggression not just while adhering to our values, but by adhering to our values. Our democratic and legal processes arm us with weapons that China doesn't have, among others, real partners and allies. And our partnerships help protect the American people every day. Today's cases are no different. We couldn't have accomplished this work without our foreign partners and the U.S. academic community in particular. One reason we've had so much success bringing partners to this fight against the Chinese government's aggression is that they see through Beijing's hypocrisy. For example, they see the type of CCP hypocrisy on display in our fox hunt case today, yet another case where the Chinese government officials and co-conspirators mercilessly harassed a naturalized U.S. citizen to try to force him to return to China against his will. They accused the victim in this case of embezzling money.
He's reading this stuff like he's talking to a bunch of children, like he's narrating a child's book.
Today are themselves actually involved in a scheme to launder millions of dollars. And as if that weren't enough evidence that the real purpose of their operation was political, they gave their victim a deadline to return by, the 20th CCP Congress earlier this month. They're focused on repression, not law enforcement. But our partners also see the CCP's broader hypocrisy, the fact that while the CCP claims to stand for sovereignty and non-interference in other states' affairs, what the Chinese government actually does is interfere with sovereign governments around the world whenever doing so suits Beijing. Here, interfering with our independent judiciary, violating both our sovereignty and the norms of police conduct to run lawless intimidation campaigns here in our backyard, and corrupting our academic freedom to further their campaign of repression and theft. The FBI is going to continue to say what we mean and mean what we say. So our partners, both here and abroad, many of whom tell us they're battling Chinese aggression themselves, know they can depend on us against the Chinese government and countless other dangers. Finally, let me urge any person or company being targeted or approached by the Chinese government to come to the FBI for help. No American citizen, resident, company, or university should battle this threat alone, and you don't have to. You can report information through your local FBI field office or online at fbi.gov, and know that our quarrel is with the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, not the Chinese people, and certainly not Chinese Americans.
Racist.
I want to congratulate all the FBI special agents, intelligence analysts, and professional staff who have worked on these cases, as well as our partners at CBP and the IRS. I also want to take the opportunity to specifically thank the government employee who played such a critical role in the obstruction of justice case. You know, we employ double agents frequently in our counterintelligence operations against the PRC's services and other foreign threats. And given the nature of that work, we very rarely get a chance to publicly thank them. So I am delighted to have that chance today. Thank you.
Prostitute.
Good afternoon. These three cases highlight once again the threat that individuals acting at the direction of the PRC government pose to our institutions and to the rights of people inside the United States. These operations include the harassment and attempted repatriation by force of individuals living in the United States, the effort to corrupt our judicial system, and the attempt to recruit agents for the PRC under the cover of a phony academic organization. We will not tolerate these actions. The National Security Division, which I am privileged to lead, was created to take on our most significant national security threats. These cases reflect the breadth and the persistence of hostile nation-state activity. These actions threaten our sovereignty and they threaten the rule of law, and countering these threats is a cornerstone of the mission of the National Security Division. Our success in disrupting these threats depends on our strong partnerships with the U.S. Attorney's offices, with the FBI, and with the U.S. intelligence community. So I want to take this opportunity to recognize the exemplary work of the U.S. Attorney's offices that made these cases possible. First, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, that's led by Breon Peace, and I want to thank Assistant U.S. Attorney Alex Solomon, who is with me here on stage, AUSA's Meredith Arfa and Antoinette Rangel, as well as National Security Division Trial Attorney Scott Claffey. I also want to recognize Philip Sellinger, the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey. We are grateful for the work of Assistant U.S. Attorneys Brendan Day, who is also here, and Joyce Malliette. Along with the FBI and the National Security Division, these offices and the attorneys in these offices are on the front lines every day working to defend our national security.
This guy kind of has a sling blade kind of look to him.
We got everybody? Okay. In that case, we're ready for some questions.
Thank you. I was hoping one of you, maybe the FBI director, could talk a little bit about the timing of this announcement coming at the end of the party Congress and the beginning of Xi's third term, and whether what kind of a signal it is intended to send to China at this delicate political time. And then, Attorney General, I have a question for you as well about another large company. Okay, all right. Make sure you come back to me, please.
So we bring cases when they're ready, and that's probably the simplest answer and most straightforward answer to that. As far as what signal they send, if the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, continues to violate our laws, they're going to keep encountering the FBI.
All right, I'm back.
With regard to another large company, a judge on Friday said that the families who were victims of the Boeing 737 MAX crash have standing to challenge the settlement in that case as crime victims. And I just am wondering if DOJ leadership is worried about the Boeing settlement, that it could be vacated now because prosecutors seemingly violated the crime victims' rights.
Well, it's a matter, obviously, from the question, part of ongoing litigation, so I'm just not going to be able to answer it.
First question for the FBI director, and then I have one for the Attorney General. Director Wray, given the brazen nature of these allegations, I was wondering if you could give us an update on the level of activity you see from the PRC in terms of the number of open cases that you have at any given moment, and what this says about the potential for the midterms in terms of Chinese manipulation and or the Russians as well.
Well, as far as the brazenness of the Chinese government's threat, these cases, I think, are part and parcel of a broader effort that we're seeing and have seen for some time. I think I recently commented that when I last looked, we were opening a new China counterintelligence investigation about every 12 hours. And it's about a 1,300% increase from several years ago. As far as the election itself, the threat of any nation state to our election system, to influence, to interfere, is something that we have to all remain vigilant about. In many ways, malign foreign influence, whether it's from the Chinese government, the Russian government, or other governments, is not just an election cycle issue, but a 365-day-a-year problem. And that's why we created the Foreign Influence Task Force several years ago, and that's why we work so closely with our partners in the intelligence community, with the Department of Homeland Security, and in particular with state and local election officials, which of course, as you know, is where the responsibility for, the primary responsibility for the integrity of our election system.
Are they friend or foe?
Given the nature of the Mar-a-Lago investigation, I was wondering, can you guarantee to the American public when the investigation is complete that there will be transparency so the country writ large will know whether there were criminal offenses that took place or not?
Look, this is an ongoing investigation, so I'm really not able to comment. We speak through our filings and through the cases we bring. That's the only way we speak.
I have a question about this particular case. It's for anyone. I assume, first of all, that these two individuals in the first case and the EY case are not in custody. Is there any prospect of getting them into custody? And then, secondly, is there any sort of suggestion that Huawei was connected in any way to these two individuals in terms of inducing their behavior or being aware of their behavior?
Give Mr. Solomon a chance to answer these questions.
We're not going to comment on the identity of the company involved in the first charging instrument. And we are always interested in apprehending individuals who violate our laws and who are named in charging instruments.
But even without naming the company, is there any allegation that they were aware or participants or cognizant of this?
There's an allegation that one of the officers in the complaint refers to directions from the company to arrange a meeting, which the officer refuses.
Jeff. Attorney General Garland, this is midterms related. Have you been 15 days out? We're getting closer.
When you start a question like that, you pretty much know what my answer is going to be, don't you?
Have there been concerns about intimidation, armed people armed at polling places in Arizona, problems in Houston, Harris County, asking for DOJ's help? Are you concerned about what you're seeing this far out, and will the Department of Justice get involved?
The Justice Department has an obligation to prevent, to guarantee a free and fair vote by everyone who's qualified to vote, and will not permit voters to be intimidated.
Quick side question, if I could ask, was it a mistake to get rid of the China initiative?
So I think as these cases make quite clear, we are unrelenting in our efforts to prevent the government of China from economic espionage, from operating in the United States as foreign agents, from trying to affect our rule of law, our judicial system, from trying to target and recruit Americans to help them. I'm going to let Mr. Olson say more about the China initiative, but I think this case should be very clear that we have not in any way changed our focus on those kind of behaviors by China.
So as the Attorney General said, we have stayed very focused on the threat that the PRC poses to our values, to our institutions.
I'll never kill nobody again.
And
that's all I could think when I see this guy.
I think what we are charging today in terms of the range and persistence of the threat we see from the PRC demonstrates that we have remained relentless and focused on that threat, and we will continue to be focused on that threat going forward.
You just got rid of it in name, essentially?
So we ended the China initiative earlier this year after a lengthy review and adopted a broader strategy focused on the range of threats that we face from a variety of nation states, and that's the strategy we're carrying forward.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Thank you.
All right, hooligans. Well, that's part one. I'm going to get everything flipped around. We're going to start the White House press briefing with Karine. While I'm doing that, please share out the links so we can get these chats filled up. Also, if you got a second, join the Hooligan community over on Gilded or Discord, whichever you prefer. It's the best way to receive alerts, stay up to date, hang out with hooligans 24/7. Just be in the loop. Get exclusive news and all the fun being a part of the community, so definitely join up. Alright, has anyone got a pee or anything before we start the movie? You guys got your snacks? Press 1 if you're ready. See some ones in the chat. Jeb, these guys must not rate. They don't even get a signing person. I didn't even think about that. They didn't want that message to be broadcast to those that require a signing person. I didn't even think of that. That's a good call there, Jeb. Never comply lives, gotta pee. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
I literally walk around in life and say all the sound bites out loud. I narrate my life out loud. It's always the live for me. All right, hooligans, let's get it started. So it looks like Peter is not there, or wasn't there this morning, or however that needs to be phrased. His blonde companion's there. High Plains Drifter, I will see what I can do. You should look at the website. I have the merch store, and I'm limited on what I can do with the merch store. But if you go to the website that's on the link tree, it's titled like patches and hats and stuff like that on the link tree. If you go there, there's some shirts and stuff, and I have a little bit more control over what's listed. So maybe we'll have the sizes and stuff you need over there. What's up, Donnie Brooklyn? Welcome to the live. Bubba, what's the sign for we've been trying to figure it out. There's gotta be. There's gotta be. It's just hard to see because of the delay between the signing person listening and then signing, I guess is probably the correct phrasing. It's hard to tell. One day we'll figure it out. Every once in a while we have a hooligan. I can't think of their name, but they count how many uhs we'll get during a live, and that's always fun. Also, think of poll ideas while we're live. I can't think of all the ideas for the show. I know that's my job, but it's a lot more fun when you guys come up with ideas for what we should have for the poll during the live and whatnot. So especially because we're live on 2 different YouTube channels right now, definitely come up with some ideas for the poll. Oh, Kareen will be out just a second. I'll fast forward it if need be. What's up, Proud Ankle? Am I ready for winter? As ready as I'm gonna get. Actually, you want to hear how ready I am really quick? The reason we didn't cover this live earlier today is because I had to take my car to the shop. Had some weird engine codes come up. Some P0028 solenoid something or other. Something engine bank 2 for anybody that cares. Wynn got it looked at, and apparently my water pump system that I just had replaced when I did the head gaskets and timing belt apparently blew. So next Thursday, not this upcoming Thursday, but next Thursday, I'll be taking my Subaru back to the shop so they can pull the face off my engine and do the water pump and all that stuff. So that's fun. That's fun. But it's all covered under warranty and stuff, so I should be good. And Dennis and them over at Paul's Auto, they always do really great work, and they do really good by me. So I'm not worried about it. But you know how cars are.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday.
What is she wearing? Is the poll going to be about her outfit?
This morning, another school shooting, this time in St. Louis, Missouri, has reportedly left at least 3 people dead, including the shooting suspect, and injured several others. Our hearts go out to everyone impacted by today's senseless violence, particularly those injured and killed, their families, as well as the first responders. In the wake of Newton, Parkland, Buffalo, Uvalde, and countless other shootings in communities across the country, we need additional action to stop the scourge of gun violence. Every day that the Senate fails to send assault weapons ban to the president's desk or waits to take other common sense actions is a day too late for our families and communities impacted by gun violence. Today in South Africa, African Union-led talks kicked off to address the conflict in northern Ethiopia. We commend South Africa for hosting the talks and stand ready to support African Union High Representative Obasanjo and AU panel members, former South African Deputy Labuguka and former Kenyan President Kenyatta, in facilitating an agreement. As President Biden told the UN General Assembly last month, a peace process is needed to end the fighting in Ethiopia and restore security for all its people. The United States has been intensely involved diplomatically in supporting the launch of this mediation effort. Our special envoy for the Horn of Africa, Ambassador Mike Hammer, has been in the region the past several weeks and will be participating as well. After nearly 2 years of conflict, the crisis in northern Ethiopia is one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. With humanitarian access largely blocked since August, emergency nutrition and health supplies have completely run out in many areas, and severely malnourished populations, particularly children under 5, will start dying at alarming rates without immediate additional supplies. There is no military solution to this conflict. We call on the government of Ethiopia and the Tigrayan authorities to engage seriously in the AU-led talks to achieve an immediate cessation of hostilities, unhindered delivery of humanitarian assistance to all Ethiopians in need, prevention of further human rights abuses and atrocities, and Eritrea's withdrawal from northern Ethiopia. The United States urges the parties to resolve their differences through dialogue and prevent further human rights abuses. And as we have made clear directly to the relevant parties in recent days, those who commit atrocities will be held accountable. Now, with respect to the news from the United Kingdom today, as you all know, it's protocol for the president to wait until after an incoming British Prime Minister has met with the monarch and been invited to form a new government to offer his congratulations. But President Biden looks forward to speaking with Minister Sunak in the upcoming days and an end to our continued close cooperation with the United Kingdom. I wanted to also give a quick update on the work the president is doing to lower prices and give hard-working Americans a bit more breathing room. The Biden administration is continuing to charge
all that breathing room they keep giving us.
Student debt relief plan in compliance with the 8th Circuit's order. As I said on Friday,
Gas is about $4.28 here. What is it where you are?
Prevent borrowers from applying for student loan relief at studentaid.gov. Again, that's studentaid.gov. The order also does not reverse the lower court's dismissal of the case or suggest that the case has any merit at all. It merely prevents debt from being discharged until the court makes a decision. The Department of Education will continue reviewing applications and preparing them for transmission to loan services. As of Friday, 22 million student borrowers have already applied for this game-changing relief. The president's message to borrowers is to apply for student debt relief at studentaid.gov if they haven't already. He will continue to fight efforts by Republican officials to block relief from getting to middle-class families. We've also seen continued progress bringing down prices at the pump. Gas prices are declining for a third week, with prices coming down in every state across the country. Nationally, prices are down by $1.22 per gallon since their June peak. That is saving Americans' families with 2 cars about $130 a month on average. According to an industry analyst, the most common price at gas stations across the country is now $3.49 per gallon. Some states that saw increases in recent weeks are now experiencing steep declines. For instance, the price of gas fell by 31 cents in California over the past week. In Oregon and Washington, it has come down by about a quarter per gallon. Ohio, Wisconsin, and Michigan have also seen prices drop by 13 to 15 cents per gallon.
That was weeks ago. Gas is up now. It's higher than it was before they started talking about lowering gas.
At the same time, energy companies who are taking in these record profits, as you all know, also need to pass on their lower costs to consumers at the pump. And that is something that the president's going to continue to call on. Finally, we wish a happy Diwali to the millions of Americans who celebrate. This evening, the President and the First Lady will host a Diwali reception at the White House. They will be joined by the Vice President, who is, of course, the first ever South Asian American Vice President in history. The President is looking forward to celebrating this festival of lights here at the White House, along with millions of Americans who observe this sacred holiday and who have made it an important part of American culture. With that, Colleen, you want to take the first question?
Thanks, so you mentioned the St. Louis shooting, and the president just a little while ago was talking about how he'd like to pass an assault weapons ban.
What's an assault weapon?
Democrats don't control the House.
Well, let's not forget the president was able to do something just this past couple of months that hadn't been done in 30 years, which is passing a bipartisan bill on getting to that next step of dealing with gun violence. So that is something, because of the president's leadership, that he was able to do. And so he's going to continue to work on that. You have to remember, 30 years ago, he was one of the leaders to ban assault weapons. So he knows what it means to get it done. He knows the work that needs to get that done as well. But look, I think this is part of, you ask us all the time, every time you ask me here at the podium, what is the president's message to Americans? His message to Americans is there's a choice. There is going to be a choice that Americans are going to have to make. Without me getting into elections or getting into politics from here, but it's very clear. If you think about what Democrats want to do, if you think about what congressional Democrats and this president have already done, lower costs, if you think about what we're doing with our economic policies, creating jobs, making an economy that doesn't leave anybody behind, but builds it from the bottom up and the middle out, that is so incredibly
top of ass.
And what congressional Republicans want to do is take that all away. But there's also, how do we look at the future? How do we look at the things that we want to continue to do? And that's one of them, right? Banning assault weapons. How do we look at how we're going to protect women's health, right? Women's right to choose. That is making sure we codify Roe. What congressional Republicans want to do is they want to go ahead and codify Dobbs, right? They want to make that a national ban. They want to make abortion a national ban, which means that it doesn't matter if you're in a red or blue state. That right is going to be taken away from you.
One other question. How concerned is the administration about security around elections this upcoming cycle?
That's a very good question, and that is something that clearly we're monitoring very closely. Just a couple of things that we want to share with all of you on this is that the federal government is committed to working with our state and local partners to ensure the security of our election system, from voter registration all the way to vote tabulation. Recently, FBI and CISA issued a joint PSA focusing on America's election security and preparedness. They assess that any attempts by cyber actors to compromise election infrastructure are unlikely to result in large-scale disruptions or prevent voting. As of the date of October 4th, the FBI and CISA had no reporting to cyber activity has ever prevented a registered voter from casting a ballot, compromised the integrity of any ballot cast, or affected the accuracy of voter registration information. Any attempts tracked by FBI have remained localized and were blocked or successfully mitigated with minimal or no disruption to election process. That said, we will continue, as I said, monitor any threats to our elections if they arise, and work as a cohesive, coherent interagency to get relevant information to the election officials and workers on the ground.
Come on, man. You just mentioned that 22 million people have applied to have their student loans forgiven. They are expecting to have some or all of their debt cleared. You called it game-changing. How confident is the White House in your authority to actually clear this debt? And do you have any concern that you may be giving millions of Americans false hope?
Look, the president was very clear that what he was trying to do. He was trying to make sure that we gave middle-class Americans who are feeling a tight squeeze, especially coming out of dealing with this pandemic, an opportunity to be able to take away the student debt that really holds people down, if you think about it, in order to start a family, in order to put money down on a house. And so the president's going to do everything that he can to make sure that we get this done. Again, I mentioned 22 million people have signed up, but this could help up to 40 million people. This is what this can do. Give almost 40 million people an opportunity. 90% of them make less than $75,000. That is a big deal. That is a game changer. So we're going to continue to work and make sure that people continue to apply. And I'll leave the legal process over to our counsel's office and the DOJ, actually. And but again, it's not going to stop our message. We know that there are our opponents out there who.
So you're just going to do what you want, and you're just going to hope the DOJ is going to make everything legal? Is that what you just said?
Is there any chance that the president is considering extending the pause on federal student loan payments, which are set to expire in January, or is that off the table?
Look, I'm not gonna get into hypotheticals. We have to let the process play out and see where the process goes. So we're not going to get ahead of ourselves from here. It is a temporary order, right? So just want to make sure. Don't want to get ahead of any of this. It does not reverse the fact that a lower court, the court dismissed the case. Let's not forget that, or suggest that the case has any merit at all. As I was saying at the top of the briefing, we will continue to move full speed ahead in our preparations and compliance with this order, of course, and we'll continue to urge borrowers to apply at studentaid.gov. But again, we're not going to get ahead of it. It's a temporary order, and so we're just going to let the process play out.
Is that even on the table, considering extending it?
I don't have anything to announce if anything's on the table on extending the pause. What I can say, it's a temporary order, and we are going to do everything that we can to continue to do our outreach and make sure that people apply. But again, it's a temporary order. It doesn't suggest that it has any merit. And so again, we're just going to continue moving straight ahead.
Green, over the weekend, the Chinese president won a third term. What does this mean for U.S.-Chinese relations, and will they meet at the G20 as well? So
I don't have any, to take your first question last, your last question first, sorry. Don't have any meetings or anything to preview to you at this time with the president or the president of China. But we, as we have said many times, we're not going to comment on internal party politics of the PRC. President Biden and our administration are focused on responsibly managing our competition with China while cooperating on areas where our and the world's interests align, which is important to us, from climate change to health security. We continue our efforts to keep lines of communication open, including at the leader level, as we have. We've had about 5 calls with President Xi, as we have announced to all of you in the past 20 months. As you've seen, President Biden has spoken to Xi, again, as I've said several times. And we've
seen a lot of comments across the board about her outfit. Rascal says over on Rumble that she's dressed up kind of like a little girl, and that's kind of on the money. I don't really see grown women dressing like that, regardless of fashion statements and all of that. It's kind of uncommon fashion statement she's making.
DOJ has a standard process, as I've mentioned many times, for notification of law enforcement actions, and I can check to see if there's anything else that we can share for you at this moment.
Regardless of her outfit, she's too old for old man Walter.
Department of DOJ.
Thanks, Green. The results of the National Assessment of Educational Progress are in, and they show serious setbacks in math and reading for 4th and 8th graders. The government mobilized the whole of government effort, and including legislation, to respond to the economic consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. Are there any plans to mount a similarly widespread, wide-ranging, and comprehensive effort to respond to the educational consequences of this pandemic?
So, as you all know, from when the president walked into
Educational consequences?
priority for him to safely reopen schools, and he did that, especially for our kids, right, across the country, millions of kids. And let's not forget, when he walked into this administration, the COVID response was incredibly mismanaged by the former administration, and he understood, just because it was mismanaged, it could not,
Is that what happened?
At the expense of our children. So he said he'd get to work, and the first step was...
What? It was mismanaged at the expense of our children.
Open, and in a short period of time, we were able to open schools fully in just a few months after.
I kind of remember not being able to go unless you got the jabby jab. But who mandated that? Who did that? Never mind. Don't worry about that.
The president believes, and you heard directly from Secretary Cardona today. So we always knew that getting schools open would not be enough. That's why it was the first thing that we had to do. A once-in-a-generation virus has had profound impacts on our students, as we've seen from the data. And thankfully, the American Rescue Plan, to your point, that was a government approach to make sure that it provided essential funds to help students catch up academically and address the pandemic's impact on their mental health. And let's not forget that the American Rescue Plan was something only Democrats voted for. No congressional Republicans voted for that piece of legislation, which was critical to getting our economy back up, including opening up schools. So we're focused on ensuring schools across the country to use the American Rescue Plan funds to help students recover. And we have already launched nationwide efforts to get students recovered with efforts we know that work, to hire more high-quality educators and expand tutoring, summer and after-school programs bolstered by these very, very funds that the first major piece of legislation that this president was able to pass when he walked into the administration.
And then the president said last week that he's gotten 16 to 18 requests to campaign in these closing weeks. But other than a trip to Pennsylvania, he's got no campaign travel scheduled for this week. So I'm wondering, with 2 weeks to go, does the president feel like he's doing everything he possibly can to get Democrats across the finish line in these midterm elections?
So look, you just heard the president just moments ago at the DNC. Of course, I have to be careful of what I say because we do respect the Hatch Act here in this administration. Look, when the president speaks, he has a large bully pulpit, and he has been able in the past several weeks to set that national conversation, right? To be able to talk about what's at stake, what the choices that the American people have to kind of decide on, if you will. And he's talked about student debt relief. He's talked about the economy. He's talked about infrastructure. He's talked about abortion, what it means to make sure that women have to be able to make a decision on their health, right? Abortion rights. And so almost every day, you have seen the president in front of the American people talking exactly to that, what is at stake. And let's not forget, we are actually laying out issues and policies that are very popular with the American people, that are issues that the American people want to see when you think about lowering cost. And you have congressional Republicans who want to take that away, who do not want to see Americans have lower health care costs, who do not want to see Americans have lower energy costs. The first thing that they said that they would do is repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which, by the way, pieces of that, if you look at it in its parts, every part of that is popular with the American people.
But as it relates to travel, are there any plans for the president to ramp up his travel? I mean,
Well,
we have just two weeks
I'm not going to get ahead of the president. There will be more travel that we certainly will be announcing, as you mentioned. He's going to go to Pennsylvania this week. We announced that he's going to be doing the DNC. I shouldn't say we. The DNC announced that he's going to be doing a rally on November 1st in Florida, and I would say stay tuned.
With the Israeli president coming for a visit, it comes at a time when there has been a notable uptick in some prominent anti-Semitism and some questions about how Republicans are responding to that, how the culture is responding to that. What is the president's view of how that might even influence the visit or be a subject of the visit, or how he believes the country should be responding to that? Kanye West has been a part of it. Others have been asked to respond to the corporate side of those sort of notable instances.
So I could just speak for the president and how he feels, and he feels that our administration and himself should respond to this. Let's not forget, the president ran on healing the soul of our nation, right? After years of just years of division, years of hatred. And so he's been very clear on that and how important it is to make sure that he does that in this administration. So when racism or anti-Semitism rears its ugly head, he is going to call it out. And he has called it out. We should not allow that conversation to be existing, not just in the political discourse, but in our everyday lives. And so that is something that we're going to continue to call out, that the president's going to call out. It is ugly, it is dangerous, it is despicable, and he believes that that we should as leaders in the political party, leaders. It doesn't matter if you're which side of the aisle that you sit in. We should be calling this out, and that is something that again he's going to condemn, and he's going to be very, very clear to call this out in the strongest terms.
Does he think others have been timid in that area?
I've talked about this before when we saw the situation in Los Angeles, and I was asked about the city council members specifically in Los Angeles, and they were Democrats. And we were very clear, it doesn't matter if there's a D or an R after your name, that we should call this out. And what is sad about this is you see Republicans in Congress who make these horrific, and not just in Congress, but across the spectrum, make these really vile and despicable comments about racism and anti-Semitism, and they don't call it out. And that is not going to be how the president is going to handle situations like this. He is going to call it out regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, regardless of, again, if there's a D or an R after your name. There is no place at all for that type of vile belief or language in our political discourse. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks. On student loan forgiveness.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's hard. It's hard.
Student loans. If the legal challenges are resolved, do you expect that anyone will get their loans forgiven before the midterms?
Look, we're not doing this.
Is that person the only survivor in the room? The compliance cloths kill me at this point.
Clear that up.
I mean, it's been killing me for a long time, but the stragglers that are still doing it, at this point, they're just concealing their identity.
This benefit of this program, the president's program, relief as soon as possible. Clearly, there is this case before us, and so what we're going to do is continue to do outreach to make sure folks apply online and to make sure that they know if they are eligible to get this relief. Again, this is not about for us, for this president. This is not about the midterms. This is a campaign promise that he has kept. This is another way to make sure that we are giving Americans a little bit more of a breathing room. This is another way as we're dealing with a high cost American.
All that breathing room they keep talking about.
They have an opportunity in this regard with student debt relief.
That breathing room is inflation.
More opportunity to get things done for their families.
Very quickly, we saw the First Lady in a Phillies t-shirt yesterday. Should we expect that they're going to go to the World Series?
I don't have anything to announce, but as you know, the First Lady is very excited about her team going into the World Series. I don't have any scheduling to announce. I don't know. I don't have anything to share at this time, but clearly there is some excitement in the Biden household. Jackie.
Thanks, Karine. Today, the president seemed to be countering some of this GOP messaging on the economy, and he told people that Republicans like to call Democrats big spenders, and people should look at the facts. But the facts don't seem to be exactly how he's painting it on some of these issues. He has claimed repeatedly that the administration reduced the deficit, but if you break it down, spending was high because of the pandemic, those programs expired, and that brought down the deficit, and then that deficit reduction was spent on canceling student loans. And then on the jobs claims that he made, he said that President Trump was the first since Hoover to lose jobs during his administration, but and he claimed that he had created 10 million new jobs, but in reality, those jobs have mostly been added back, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics says only about 514,000 jobs have been newly created. So how are people supposed to take this kind of messaging on their most important issue seriously when some of this feels like smoke and mirrors?
Well, let me tell you what the American people should take very, very seriously. Let me remind you of the Trump tax cut of 2017, $2 trillion that was not paid for, not paid for. So I want to be very clear about that. And let me also remind the American people of what was happening in January of 2020, January 20th or 20.
Remind the American people as if she is giving all of us individually attitude.
American businesses, small businesses were shutting down. I just talked about schools. Only 46% of schools were shut down. There was not a real comprehensive COVID response and making sure that people got shots in their arms. And because of the American Rescue Plan, which is something that Republicans refused to work on, refused to vote on, the American Rescue Plan got those schools open, got those small businesses open again, and really made us and put us in a place where the economy turned back on. And we saw historic, don't
it just turned back on. It just happened.
That shows that unemployment is the lowest that it's been in 50 years. It also shows that what we were able to do, even with the strong labor market, that was because of the plan, the economic policies that the president put forth. So he put in the work. And here's the thing, and I'll add more, and I'm happy to hear your next question. Congressional Republicans have been very, very clear on what they want to do. And this is the choice that the president talks about that Americans have to decide on. They have.
Her tiny ghoulish hands.
That the first thing that they're going to repeal is the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually lowers costs for American people. They have said that if they are not able to put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping blocks, right, they're going to essentially hold us hostage. If that doesn't happen, they're going to shut down the government. That does not help inflation. That makes it worse. That does not help the economy. That makes it worse. And so that is the stark difference here of what we are talking about what congressional Democrats and this president want to do.
So why doesn't he lean more on some of that language than continuing to repeat this "we reduce the deficit" thing that feels like sort of irrelevant?
No, the reduce the deficit is real. $1.4 trillion. That's what he talked about just last week, and that is historic as well. In 1 year, that's what the president has been able to do. Those are real numbers that matter as we talk about inflation, as we talk about the economy.
It just happened on its own.
No, but it is actually the policies that he has taken that has helped reduce the deficit. Let's not forget Trump 2017 with the $2 trillion that Republicans were very happy to vote on and was not paid for. So there is a difference here in how we approach the economy, how we approach what Americans are going through right now, how we approach dealing.
Yeah, what are we going through? Tell us, Karine.
You're not seeing currently from Republicans. I got to move on because we don't have a lot of space. What? No, wait, go ahead.
We don't have enough space? What's going on with all the breathing room?
Economic policies on Friday and today in the context of the midterms. He said he thought there would be a shift for the Democrats. Can you provide any clarity about what he meant by shift? Shift from what to what?
So I want to also be very careful here in talking about elections or politics. Look,
she's got more community guidelines than YouTube.
Many polls in the short term that we have left in these next couple of weeks. I'm not going to get ahead of them. And as we know, polls go up, polls go down. It's a roller coaster. And so I don't want to get ahead of that. I'll just let his words stand because, again, he was talking about the midterm, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But again, there's going to be a lot of movement in the next couple of weeks, and I think that's what he was speaking to.
Okay, I have a question about the war as well. Secretary Blinken has already said that the U.S. believes that Russia's claims that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb are false claims. Does the U.S. have any reason to believe that the accusations are a signal that Russia is preparing a false flag attack?
So let me just get on the record on a couple of things, basically just kind of reiterating what the Secretary said. We reject Russia's transparently false allegation that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory. Just today, you saw Foreign Minister Kuleba of Ukraine put out a statement about his call with Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Foreign Minister officially invited the IAEA to send experts to study facilities in Ukraine, countering Russia's false claims. The IAEA has agreed to do so. We welcome this commitment to transparency and the assurance it will provide the international community. The world will see through any Russian attempt to use this allegation as pretext or for escalation. So obviously, to your question, Weijia, and welcome back. I'm so sorry. I should have said welcome back. Welcome back, and congratulations to you.
She kills me.
About the false allegation being used as a pretext for further escalation. And we've made clear we reject these allegations. And so we have not seen any reason to adjust our own, for example, nuclear posture, nor do we have indication that Russia is preparing to use nuclear weapons. But obviously, we are going to condemn what we're hearing and call it out.
Prostitutes. Thanks, Karine. Late Friday, the Department of Homeland Security released the latest numbers on border interactions with the Border Patrol. They show that over the course of fiscal year 2022, 2.4 million encounters happened on the southern border. That's the most ever on record. Republicans have their arguments about that. What's the White House's explanation as to what happened and why?
So I've said this before at this podium in the briefing room. What we're seeing, this new migration challenge, is driven by people who are fleeing falling regimes and economic collapse, as you know, in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and also Cuba. It's impacting the entire Western Hemisphere, what we're seeing currently. The number of individuals arriving from Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba was up 245% from September of last year. Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh, damn, they got charts and graphs and shit. Must be true.
Meanwhile, the number of migrants from Mexico and northern Central America is down nearly a quarter compared to just last year. So we're seeing, again, a different challenge ahead of us that we're dealing with. But, and we've talked about this, while we're trying to deal with the challenges, as you all know, you have Republican governors who are using these migrants, using these folks who are trying to flee communism, falling regimes, and economic collapses, as I just mentioned. They're using them as a political pawn, which you've heard us call out many times from here, and you've heard the president call out. We are hard at work in driving toward a regional solution to manage this new challenge. As you have heard from us on October 12th, we announced the Department of Homeland Security.
We have a new challenge?
With Mexico to provide an orderly and limited
mentally
for Venezuela Venezuelan nationals to arrive in the United States and encourage them to stop putting their lives in the hands of smugglers. So since the launch of this joint enforcement actions, we have seen the number of Venezuelans attempting to cross the southern border decrease sharply by more than 85%. So we are doing the work every day to make sure that we deal with what we're seeing in the southern border.
Thank you, Karine. I've got two questions for you. Earlier today, the Wall Street Journal reported citing people inside the Saudi government, essentially saying that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman regularly mocks the president in private, making fun of his gaffes and questioning his mental acuity. The reporter also noted that MBS preferred former President Trump to President Biden, and I wondered if you had any reaction to that.
I don't have any comments to that.
I've got another question about the economic message that we've been hearing from the president. He obviously has talked about the stark choice that the country faces.
Oh, they don't have no comment on that.
Democrats to remain in power and putting Republicans in power. He's talked about how Republicans will crash the economy, they'll shut down the government, go after Medicare, Social Security. It's a pretty stark choice that he's laid out, and I wonder if this president who's
Look how he's smiling and everyone else is grimacing.
Work with Republicans believes that if we get to a point of divided government, if it's just going to be chaos, or if he actually thinks that things could actually work between a Democratic president and a Republican Congress.
So let me say something about your first question. I'm not going to comment about,
About what?
kind of ridiculous statements. I'm not.
Oh, yeah? Is it ridiculous?
The president has been very clear from the beginning of this administration that we needed to review our relationship with Saudi Arabia. And so that is something that we are going to continue to review. And once we have something to share, we certainly share that. The decisions that OPEC Plus made recently, we saw it as them aligning with Russia. And that is going to hurt many economies across the globe. And so, the president is going to have more to say on that, and when he does, you'll hear directly from him. On your I'm not going to give it any more light. I'm just saying that more broadly. And on your second question, look, it's not. Don't take my word from it. Of it, what they're going to do to the economy. The congressional Republicans have been very, very clear. They have said if that they want to put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping blocks. They have said that. That is their plan. And if they do that, that is going to hurt Americans. And if they don't get that, they said that they would shut down the government. That is what Republicans have said. They also have said that they were going to repeal Inflation Reduction Act. Again, that's going to, if they do that, it will take away the power that Medicare has to negotiate, that they now have to negotiate prices for seniors to lower those prescription drug prices. They would take that away in a time when middle-class families are dealing with inflation. They want to take that away. This is also a plan, as you know, that deals with climate change in a real way. And they want to take that away. So that's them. That is them saying that we are laying down the choice between congressional Democrats and congressional Republicans. Okay.
Is the president ruling out any budget cuts, including discretionary spending cuts, or just Social Security and Medicare?
I don't have anything else to share on any policy updates.
And then on deficit reduction, the fact that the White House is celebrating deficit reduction, to build on Jackie's question, does that mean the president thinks that the deficit should be reduced even further next year? Would more deficit reduction be economically good at this point?
So he's going to do everything that we can to continue to reduce the deficit. I don't have any number to share, but he's going to do everything that he possibly can.
Karine, back on the China meeting, I know you guys are still working through that and you don't want to weigh in on internal politics there, but can you say from your point of view, if this meeting is to occur, given what we've just seen play out in Beijing, what kind of goals do you have going into that, given that the Chinese leader seems to be doubling down on a lot of isolationist policies?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of the president and what a meeting that could potentially happen or not happen and what the agenda would be. As you know, the president has talked to President Xi several times. We've given a readout of that conversation, of how the conversation has gone and what has been the agenda on those several conversations. I'm not going to get ahead of the president on this.
Can you just say right now, given, following the Pelosi visit, China shut down a lot of...
She just stuck her lizard tongue out.
Right now that you have enough channels open to actually plan this meeting and make sure that you convey exactly what you're trying to get out of it and hear the Chinese side?
Like I said, we continue our efforts to keep lines of communication open, including at the leader level. So that is something that we have been doing for some time now, and we're going to continue to make that happen.
One in Africa,
Thank you, Karina. Two questions. First, it's been tradition for presidents of both parties the day after the midterms to hold a news conference to talk about what the voters of America have decided the night before. Can you commit that the president will do that this time around?
I don't have anything to read out to you or to lay out on a schedule for the president post-election. I'm certainly not going to get ahead of him or ahead of any announcement that we're going to make.
And on another matter, earlier today, a group of 30 House liberals sent a letter to the White House urging the president to shift his strategy on the Ukraine war, saying that more direct negotiation, direct contact with Russia was needed. That's something the White House to this point has not done, being deferential to the Ukrainians. So my two questions on that were, does the White House plan to shift course? And secondly, is the White House concerned that there may be some fracturing here of Democratic support for the war effort?
So look, we've been very clear, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Like, we've been very, very clear. Like, this is a decision that President Zelensky is going to have to make when it comes to any type of conversation with Russia, any type of negotiation. That is something that Ukrainians need to make. We will continue to support them as long as it takes. Again, this is, and I've said this many times, this is a war, an unprovoked war, a brutal war that President Putin has started, has created. He can end this war at any time. He can end it today if he wishes. And we are going to continue to support the brave Ukrainians who are fighting every day for their freedom and who are fighting every day for their sovereignty. Again, that is up to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people.
Concerned, though, about this being the first time that a group of Democrats is questioning the White House's strategy?
So I have not seen this letter. I will say this, that we're certainly very thankful of the bipartisan support that we have seen over the past several months during this war from Congress, and we're going to continue to keep those lines of communications open and continue to have conversations with members of Congress. Don't have a direct response at this time to the letter.
Okay. Thanks, Corinne. Two questions on COVID. Can you give us a preview of what the president's going to say in his remarks tomorrow when he gets his updated shot?
Yep. I do have something for you all for tomorrow. So for the president, it's important for him to publicly receive his updated COVID vaccine tomorrow. As you all know, it's the right time for him to get it after his infection this summer. And he wants to send a signal to the American people that the vaccine is safe, effective, widely available.
It's important that he gets it publicly. I'm waiting for him to publicly debate Trump. That's what I want to see publicly.
The updated vaccine right now, and you can expect him to make that point very clearly to all of you tomorrow. And fortunately, the vaccines
I mean, honestly, old man Walter's such a piece of shit. I'd like to see him try and hang with a 9-year-old in a debate.
Types of subvariants that we see thus far. We'll have more detail to preview ahead of his shot and remarks, but what I can say is that we're continuing to see encouraging trends in vaccinations. For example, in the first 3 weeks, we saw about 7.5 million shots. In the last 3 weeks, we've seen almost 12 million. That's a nearly 60% increase. That's important progress, and we know numbers are higher after the weekend. The big administration focus is on reaching those at the highest risk, particularly our seniors, and there's good progress there. Half of shots have gone to seniors, and that means almost 10 million seniors, nearly 1 in 5 seniors, have already gotten their updated vaccine. We're doing outreach on the ground. We're using existing funds for targeted paid media and continue to push everyone with a platform to spread the word, which will be a portion of tomorrow's event as well.
Can I follow up on COVID?
Spread the word.
Going back to the president.
Eat shit.
The president of Israel. Can you give us some sense about what topics are on the the agenda? What is the president's goal for this bilateral?
Well, the president is looking forward to hosting the president of Israel. I don't have anything specific to share on what's going to be on the agenda or what's going to be discussed. But again, he's looking forward to that meeting, and as we get closer, we'll share more to all of you for sure.
Thanks, Corinne. There've been some slightly conflicting reports about Elon Musk. On one side, there's been a report that he might be subject to some kind of national security review. There's been kind of trolling on Twitter, communicating with Medvedev on Twitter. So there's been a little bit of confusion about what his role is there. And on the other side, there's been reports that he's in discussions, or the government's in discussions with him about providing Starlink to Iran, or to the people protesting in Iran. So could you give an overview of
The guy sitting behind the guy speaking totally looks like a Fed. Look at that look on his face.
No, I know there's a lot of interest in this. We've heard those reportings. Those reportings are not true.
I think his human face is irritating his lizard skin.
Not true, and I really don't have more to say on that piece as well, on the Elon Musk and what he's choosing to do and not to do. I'm not going to say more from here.
Thank you. Two questions. One on Britain, UK. What kind of relationship the president wants to have with the new British Prime Minister, and does the president think that the British democracy is in turmoil right now?
So, look, the United States and the United Kingdom are strong allies and have an enduring friendship, and that fact will never change. And so we know they will continue to be reliable partners on a range of issues, including holding Russia accountable for its aggression against Ukraine. And we will be working very closely, we believe, with the new Prime Minister.
One on Deepavali celebrations by the president this afternoon. When did the president has a strong relationship with the Indian Americans community. He has spoken about it in the past. Do you remember when the president celebrated Diwali for the first time, and when was that?
With whom? When was that? I don't have anything to share. As you know, when he was vice president, he would hold these receptions and events at the vice president residence. And so, but as far as how early that started, I don't have anything to share. We're happy to check in with folks.
If we can get
happy to do that. Happy to do that. All right.
On the event tomorrow with the vaccines, is the White House shifting at all in its ask for additional COVID funding now that this rollout has begun? Sort of a reassessment of what may be needed? And to that point,
why is he staring so intensely?
On the way forward to get that funding?
Like he can't stand her at all.
Well, we believe. Mm-hmm. We believe getting that additional funding is going to be critical.
Is it still at 22?
It's still the same at $22 billion, and we are going to continue to have those conversations with Congress. That has not ended. We're going to continue to make sure we get that additional funding. As we know, we made this a priority to make sure that this new vaccine, the bivalent, we had funding for that in going into the winter months because we understood how critical it was to make sure that people got vaccinated. But in doing so, as you all know, we had to really pull money away from from folks getting free tests. And so we've been very clear with Congress for the past several months on how critical it is to continue this funding, to have our front foot, if you will, on making sure that we have new vaccines and making sure that we have the continued treatment to offer that to people for free. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations again, keep those lines of communication open. We believe it's incredibly important. What we are doing right now, this campaign that we're doing for this bivalent vaccine, is for the winter months. And after that, there is no funding available. And so we have to make sure that that Congress acts. Congress needs to act on getting more funding for COVID.
Follow up on COVID.
Okay, I'll take one last one. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. There's reporting out of Forbes that TikTok's China-based parent company, ByteDance, plan to use the TikTok app to track the physical location of specific Americans. My question is, does the administration still believe that it's safe for Americans to use TikTok? And does the White House believe that TikTok presents a security threat to upcoming elections, given that they are partnering with organizations like the Federal Voting Assistance Program to provide information about elections?
So I'll say this, haven't seen those reportings, but I'll say this more broadly, that the president is concerned about the power large social media platforms have over our everyday lives, and has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms that they cause. And so the president has been very consistent on that, and the president has long been a supporter of...
Sound like she said TED Talks.
Including reforming Section 230, as you've heard us say many times. His stance on Section 230 is not new, and it's something he made clear on the campaign trail as one. This continues to be his position on that specific story. I can't comment from that from here, and so I'll leave it there as how he sees social media more broadly.
Well, then to follow up, I understand that there are these concerns about big tech and social media, but the TikTok and national security implications seem to be unique. And this isn't the first time that TikTok's ties to China have been scrutinized. I know the administration has made use of TikTok several times over the course of the last 2 years. Will the president and the White House continue to make use of this platform, given that there are serious red flags?
So again, let me talk to the National Security Council team on that specific report that you are laying out at this time, and then we'll respond. All right, thanks everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Hey, thank you so much, Gordzilla, for the $5 donation. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. All right, hooligans, let's get ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. But first, just a little bit of decompression. Oh, eat shit, Kareen. Good Lord. All that lying and crying up there burns you out, especially when you keep track of everything like most of us do, watching this every day for almost 3 years now. Oh, Kareen, you can't lie to us. We know too much. All right, hooligans, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You know that feeling when you're trying to talk and you gotta sneeze? Well, trying to do that during the Pledge of Allegiance in front of a few hundred people. It's even more difficult than you think it is. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me for a watch party. Like I said, I had to take my car into the shop earlier. Otherwise, we would have just covered it live. So I appreciate all of you coming and hanging out with me tonight. It's always good hanging out with the hooligans. Got to drink a twisted tea and whatnot. Here's some good old-fashioned lying and crying. So I appreciate you guys. Big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I appreciate all of you, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you guys so much for being here and all your support. Most likely I'll see you tomorrow for the next live. I don't think I have anything going on, so we should be able to cover it live. Either way, I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.